Hi, Megan. Please let me know if you can hear me. Thank you.
We can hear you.
All right, then I'm going to put myself on mute.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Check, check. Because I learned all about OWS. It seems so far.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee, and we are having an informational hearing with our esteemed colleagues at the Office of Workforce Strategy. Here at the Higher Ed and Employment Advancement Committee, there are multiple ways in which we work to ensure that the people of Connecticut have strong job training opportunities across the state so they can get into good paying careers. And the Office of Workforce Strategy is an integral part of that. So I wanted to make sure that my colleagues in this committee get to hear the latest updates and a little bit of an overview from Dr. Kelly Valeris regarding the work that she's doing with her team at the Office of Workforce Strategy, where we are now with that work and where we're going to be headed next. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Valeris. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rep. Rochelle, for inviting me here today, and thank you to the rest of the committee for having me here as well. I have prepared a presentation for you, but I'm also very happy to answer any questions or engage in any conversation. So please just let me know as we move forward. If there's anything that you want to know more about, I'm happy to dig in a little bit deeper. But considering today is a conversation with higher ed, I've moved a couple of the programs that we've been supporting and working on specifically in higher ed to the top of the deck, and then happy to go into a little more detail in some of the sector-based training program that we're doing, because I'm a very strong believer that the work that we do in our sector-based, whether it's non-credit or credit, is stackable into those higher education opportunities, and that we should always be looking at how we build those pathways out to ensure that people are supported completely on their pathway as they move through their career advancements. So I'll give you a quick overview, if you can start the presentation here, of the strategy and where we've been. So the office is now 4.5 years old, going into the 5th legislative session, and I feel like I'm just starting to get my feet underneath me, and I want to thank you for your support during the process. And in this 4.5 years, we've learned a lot. We started with a very robust strategy that had 19 individual pillars and was very focused on leading very specific projects. That was a very difficult, large strategy to manage as a small agency. And then when we received ARPA funds and then Good Jobs Challenge funds, some of our focus needed to shift a little bit. But we've learned a lot, and every one of those initiatives is vitally important, and some of them have moved forward and others are still kind of waiting in the queue. But we spent the last year working with all of our state agency partners, our legislative partners, our industry partners, community-based organizations to establish our next outlook of the strategic plan. So I want to give you just a really high level of where we're at with that plan as we move forward. And this really is designed to frame the way this office works. You can go to the next one. To frame the way the office works. And ensure that what we're doing is really laser focused within the strategy. So it helps us stay focused to the work in front of us. There's a lot of things that we could get involved in, and we want to make sure that we're really strategic in moving those the things that we can move forward in the best of our ability forward. So our mission is really simple. We want to make workforce work for everybody, and we want to make sure that every resident has the opportunities to engage in meaningful training programs, educational programs that lead to those career ladders that are of most interest to them, and that our businesses have access to the global talent that they need today and in the future. So it's a pretty wide mission, and it kind of starts thinking about how do we prepare our young students for the world of work all the way through their academic programming, and then how do we support our job seekers to move their visions forward. So we have broken this down to an approach that is based on 3 foundational concepts. One is workforce alignment. So when I took on this role, I I came into this role as an industry partner, and I had people asking me from all over the state to serve on this board or this working committee. And it looked to me like there's great work happening everywhere, but not everybody was always talking with each other. And there was a lot of duplicating the wheel, so to speak, in different regions of the state. So we, since we've come onto this role, have been really focused on aligning all of that work and starting to bring those conversations together. And I'll give examples of that as we move along into some of the concrete work that we've been doing. So alignment is very important. Removing barriers to employment is also really important. These are diversity, equity, and inclusion opportunities where we're looking at specific populations. There's barriers across populations such as childcare, transportation, housing, but then we have some specific barriers to, say, the reentry population or the veteran population or people with disabilities who have more focused barriers that we need to address. So we have a whole segment of our work is focused on removing those barriers to employment. We are also grounding our work in data and accountability. So making sure that we have the data that we need to make data-driven decisions and to be accountable for the work that we're doing and that our partners are doing. Currently, our data system across the state is again very siloed to those partners. So it can be very difficult to answer a specific question like, what is our workforce system doing? And what are the outputs and what's the return on investment? So we've spent the last year working on a project that I'm happy to share more with you about how we start to pull that together and kind of where that work is now and what the vision is to move that forward. So that's our approach. We're really focused on three strategic ways in which we move this work forward. We're industry led. So we want to make sure that everything that we do is informed by our industry partners across many different sectors. We can't be everything to everybody. So we're trying to focus the strategies based on the sectors and occupations that have the highest demand currently, but also that we're building out the systematic approach that we can pivot as new demand arises. So we're really focused on manufacturing, healthcare, business services / IT, infrastructure, clean energy are really our focus areas at this moment in time. But it doesn't mean that we don't look at other opportunities. It just, those are kind of where our focuses are. And then we look at the job seekers, those who are currently unemployed, underemployed, or they're looking to change career ladders. And that is the work that's grounded in our sector-based training. So these are our industry recognized credentialed programs. Some of them are short-term, 5 to 10 weeks. Some of them are a little longer. Some may include some credit, but all of them include stacking credentials or the forward thinking that they will be stacking credentials if those programs don't currently exist. We're working with our higher education institutions to build those. And then our third strategy is on our students. So those who are currently in school, whether it's K through 12, or those who are in higher education and building out those pathways. So that's really what is our focus and how we're approaching that work that we're doing. And I've given you just a little bit more information here on some of the specific initiatives happening there. So around industry leadership, we currently have 14 regional sector partnerships. Across the state of Connecticut, we're engaging over 500 businesses. Last month, we held our third annual regional sector partnership convening. We had a sold out group of 300 people at Central State University and had some really amazing, robust conversations there. We're also working with other states to understand how did they scale and grow their RSPs. So Colorado came and shared the work that they're doing. They were 14 years into this and we're 3 years into it. So lots to learn. We're having conversations with our conveners and our co-conveners on how to really make the regional sector partnerships the place where businesses know they need to be at the table, to have the conversations that need to be had so that we as a state can respond to those needs. Now, workforce is always the top need of every industry sector that we talk to. So that's always a first conversation, but there's a lot of other conversations that happen there. A few years back, the manufacturing community wanted to enhance the R&D tax credit. And by the regional sector partnerships coming in and doing lobbying, they had that on the agenda for last year and got a win on their books. So the industries know that, you know, when they have the voice at the table, collectively, they can do a lot more than they can individually. So we're really excited to continue that work. We're currently partnering in a more robust way with the Office of Manufacturing around our 5 manufacturing RSPs. I just came from a meeting earlier today at CCAT, the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technologies, with Electric Boat and the 5 regional workforce boards and the electric boats training providers, Synetia and Blue Forge, and really talking about how can we collectively align the work that's being done and then bring in the resources that all of those entities have to scale. So Synetia has a lot of money to spend, and they're kind of like sprinkling and trying to understand where to spend it. And Paul and I are saying, if you work with us, we can tell you exactly where to spend it, laser focused, and we'll probably get a bigger share of the regional money coming in with Synetia because we're aligning and collaborating and supporting each other in that work. So a couple examples of what is happening there in industry leadership. Sector-based training, I think a lot of you are familiar with Career Connect and the work that we've done there. That is moving along, and I have some more information for you on that. Good Jobs Challenge and the Career Accelerator we'll get into. And today I thought I'd really robustly start the conversation with our education and career pathway programs, considering this is the Committee for Higher Ed, and wanted to spend some time digging a little bit deeper with you on 2 of our signature investments and programs, and that's the Tech Talent Accelerator and CT Health Horizons. I also have some supplemental information too that's going to be sent out to you. I don't know if you've gotten it beforehand or if you'll get it after this, that will dig deeper, but I'm happy to answer any questions so we can move forward on that. And I think I already touched on that, so move forward. There you go. So CT Health Horizons, this is a vision that came out of the Office of Workforce Strategy several years ago. We've been convening our healthcare providers very robustly since our inception. They actually supported a lot of the work in the development of the strategic plan. And what we learned is that we have great programming in Connecticut across our higher education institutions. They're not always meeting the exact needs of what is needed by our industry partners. And we really needed to ramp up the number of people coming out of our healthcare and social work programs. So the idea here was really a 3-pronged approach. First, we needed additional tuition support and really wanted to target our low income and minority students and make sure that they had opportunities in these jobs. So we looked at how do we make an investment into the tuition for these students to come into these programs. So that was the first prong of the 3-prong approach. Secondly, higher ed in healthcare is really interesting because we need PhDs to teach the programs, but those PhDs make a lot more money working in the field in which we need them. So we really have a hard time pulling those folks out of the hospital setting and have them be faculty for multiple reasons. So we were looking to our business partners to say, how can we increase the number of faculty? Because that's really the lever of how many students that we can turn out of these programs is really key on that. And then how can we think about our higher education programs being a little more innovative or accelerated? So we worked with Jen Widnes, who's here today. Thank you, Jen. And the CSCU system in UConn, and kind of came up with this investment of ARPA dollars. So it was a $35 million investment of ARPA funds CSCU administered these funds. Again, we're not a program administered, but we have the strategy and the mission and help set these courses on action moving forward. And so today, since the launch in July of 2022, we have issued 1,662 scholarships. That's 38% over the total number of goal of 1,200. The faculty, we've expanded faculty by 73 additional faculty members across the system, including 32 hires that are multi-year hires, creating a continuality of the program offerings. And a lot of these faculty, in many cases, are working as faculty part-time while they're still working in their roles in the healthcare system. So it's been an innovative approach. And then looking at how do we have innovation within these programs. So I do have documentation on all of the great programs for you, but I won't go over all of them in great detail with you today, but I'm happy to answer questions. A couple of the programs that we thought were really innovative. In Eastern Connecticut, there's not any program for social workers, for a master's degree social workers in Eastern Connecticut. The majority of the social workers that need to go to school are going to school in those graduate programs part-time, and the closest was Hartford. So University of you can move that, it's St. Francis. I just want to make sure that I get it correct. St. Joseph worked with Mitchell College and brought their master's degree program to Mitchell College to expand out that program and be able to offer something to students in Eastern Connecticut. So really excited, about that kind of work that is happening. There's a lot of work that's been happening also in our CSCU system. So just to let you know that a little over $800,000 went across several CSCU colleges to develop these innovative programs. And let's see, one of them that I think is another great example is Southern Connecticut State University partnered with 2 New Haven healthcare agencies to establish this is another social work program, training center in each of their respective agencies. And this is a pilot program, and it tested the strategy for expanding clinical placements and increasing employee retention. So clinicals are another kind of restricting factor in order to get more healthcare workers through the pipeline and ready to work. So another really good opportunity in social work. So there's a list of them here. And we're really excited that this project has been highlighted across our privates and our publics as a best practice for getting employers and our academic partners together in the same room, working collaboratively to address the issues that they have, instead of employers saying, we wish we had higher education programs that did this, and our higher ed program saying, we believe this is what employers need. We brought them to the same room, and we're building those durable partnerships. So one of the things coming out of this is with Hartford Healthcare, they have built out now a documentation of all of their career ladders, whether it's clinical, back office, their nursing or technicians. They've built out these career ladders, and now we're having conversations with how do we get people in our sector-based training programs on the entry level to these pathways, and then what are the extra credentials that we need, and how does higher education support people while they potentially need to work and go to school at the same time. So one of those programs coming out of that is CT State's bringing on an LPN program this fall. This is really key to building the nursing system, because now we can bring people in as a certified nursing assistant, which is a minimum wage job, has high turnover rate. they can work as a CNA while they're going to school for an LPN. When they get that LPN, they start working as an LPN until they get their RN, and then they can be an RN. And this helps them on that pathway of work and learn and move up the career ladder. So they're not just in an entry level kind of dead end program or position that we have seen high turnover rate for many years. So we're working with our partners to build long-term solutions to problems that are here today, but hopefully we're going to build this pipeline that is going to solve this issue, because we'll be able to scale up and down based on demand, but we have the durable relationships and partnerships that go along with that. So I think I got a little statistics here if you want to go back to, these are, some of the programs. Okay, right there. You can look at scholarships by race and ethnicity, and really making sure that we are focused on serving those who need our support the most, but making sure that these opportunities are open to everybody. So there's a little bit there. And the next slide is a little bit more granular on the types of programs, 1-2 year programs, and those who are being served in those programs. Again, these programs are dependent upon the seed funding for this, and will continue to flourish in some cases after this funding is expended. So a lot of these innovative programs were started with, as little as $10,000 up to as much as $800,000 to get them up and off the ground. I can pause there if you have any questions.
Representative Acker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Valdez, thank you for being here. It's good to see you again. The scholarships, is there a component that there's a criteria to stay and work in Connecticut after they've completed that?
Is that, do you know? Do you know that? You had to be, yeah, you had to be a Connecticut resident to do that, to get a scholarship. To your point of requiring them to stay after, that's robust conversations that we've been having, because I think that's something that is to ensure that they're gonna stay here. Just qualitatively though, I feel like, we're really serving Connecticut residents who have their roots here in Connecticut, and most likely being supported through these programs will want to stay here. Anecdotally, we have that, but we can, as these programs mature, we can pull additional data out of them. That's a good question.
Thank you. And just to follow up to that, I appreciate that, because I think one of the things that we want people to get good jobs. We'd like them to stay here. I think that's the goal. Office of Connecticut's workforce strategies is to work on Connecticut's workforce strategies. So I think that's the key. So I'll let you continue with your presentation. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, Representative Haddad.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation so far. You had mentioned that it was difficult to find faculty for nursing programs, but you've had some success in attracting people to that responsibility or field. I mean, how do you, like, what was the plan, I guess? Like, how did you do that? You had some success. I understand it's like, a nurse, especially a PhD nurse, commands can request very high salaries outside of the field of education. So what did we do that cracked that nut?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think the conversation bringing employers in, and employers having this understanding that they have to be part of the solution, is really been a different conversation that we've had in the past. And so I believe that a lot of our employers supported some of their PhDs to do some of this work. I can get you more detail. I can't tell you exactly how many of those were supported through their employers with the information that I have in front of me, but I'll follow back up with you. But we're seeing now, when we had high unemployment rates and we had like a rotating door a lot of times. For many, many years, our employers were like, well, if you don't work out, there's somebody else to take your place. And so there wasn't this level of focus in what do I need to do to support the workforce development that I need today and tomorrow. And we're really robustly seeing after COVID being in a almost zero unemployment environment. We're at 3%, which is considered full employment. We have one of the highest labor participation rates in the country. Our employers understand they have to be part of the solution and part of the process. And so they're engaging at a very different level than they did, 4 or 5 years ago. So I think that's really where we're seeing this conversation, to be able to have those conversations with employers, and being a bridge between employers and academia is also important, because they don't speak the same language. And sometimes they don't even know who to speak to within those organizations. So that kind of matchmaking and hand holding, I think, has really been the key to the success of CT Health Horizons and Tech Talent.
Thank you. I think that I can say we're all enjoying learning more about the work that you're doing, and I'd love to hear some more about that. And I hope that you can share with us a little bit more about Career Connect and Career Accelerator and all these other great programs that you have set up.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. So the next program I wanted to highlight was our Connecticut Tech Talent Accelerator program. This is actually on its third iteration. So the first 2 investments came out of the Tech Talent Fund at DECD for $1 million each. And we've expended that fund down to 0 at this point in time. But again, another really innovative program where we were able to bring in the Business Higher Education Forum, which is an organization that started in Connecticut and is about 40 years old, I believe. And they are a group of businesses that are really focused on ensuring that there's a talent pipeline. And so they become an interpreter between higher education and businesses, as we talked about earlier. We also partnered with the New England Board of Higher Education, which works across New England to support higher education programming. And so with this $1 million investment twice now, you can see all of the organizations that we've partnered with. And we've had 3 convenings now around tech talent. And so these, again, are really focused on making sure that our academic partners understand what is needed by our employers when people graduate out of their technology programs. So I'll share just a quick story with you. I was sitting, I think it was Tech Talent 1 at a university with some major employers, and the employers were telling the academic professors that we really don't need somebody to be an expert in Python coding. We need somebody to understand coding and how it relates to the cloud and all of the things that happen in the cloud that we don't see, but we feel every single day. And we had professors there saying, well, what do you mean you don't need Python experts? And the businesses were saying, well, some of us don't use Python, and the Python language is evolving all the time, and other languages are coming on. And now that we have artificial intelligence, we don't even need to do that level of coding anymore. We need more theoretical folks who can think bigger. And so those are the kind of light bulbs that go off in the conversations that happen and where the innovation really happens. So what came out of this is we have some short-term badges that happen within their higher education programs that give them certifications that they may not have gotten before. We have new courses, we have new programs, we have new skills being embedded in programs, and we're building out that talent pipeline that's as needed and ready to go when their students are graduating from their programs. And we're also building really durable relationships, right? So it's not just go to a meeting, walk away, do what you need to do, but there's this robust back and forth that is happening. And those are the types of conversations that are going to change higher education well into the future. And so what we've done, based on demand of these programs, is we funded it for the third time. And this is, the third amount of money came out of the Career Connect bond dollar 5 million that was authorized and allocated to OWS, for 2.7 million. We're launching that this spring, and that Tech Talent Accelerator process will be focused on the integration of AI. So really excited about that. And again, I have another supplementary document to share with you that kind of lists out all of the different specific programs that have happened around the Tech Talent Accelerator. I think you'll see the commonality between these two programs, and all of our academic partners and our business partners say this is the way we need to move higher education forward. And it's really applicable across industry sectors. So, we focused on these two because we were doing a lot of manufacturing in other ways. And so this is where we started. But this model moving forward is something that we'd like to continue to support through the work that our office is doing. And do we have any time? Yeah, here's a few of the outcomes of the accelerator. And these numbers are a little older. They go through spring of 2024. And these are academic programs that are evolving. So these numbers are students who have taken classes, but this number is going to keep growing into the future without additional funding having to go into these programs. And just a list of some of the various focus areas that we've had. Okay, we can go. Okay. I'll just pause one more time. Is there any other questions before we jump into Career Connect?
Yes, looks like Rep. Haddad had some questions.
Thank you. It seems with the Tech Talent Accelerator, it seems to me that the pace of technological advancement is so significant right now that without an ongoing conversation between higher education and our tech sector, that it really does a disservice to both, right? And you mentioned, that some industry partners have said to faculty members that they're sort of a little bit behind in terms of what they're teaching. I think it's also probably true that there's research currently underway at places like UConn and Yale and other research universities that sort of might be unimaginable to many of our business partners to sort of figure out what the impact of those technological advancements might be on their businesses or their business models just 10 years or 5 or 10 years down the road. I'm thinking about AI in particular. I mean, something that was, it's been around, but I think it's advancing so rapidly now that it will tend to be very disruptive, I think, to the community, the business community moving forward. And when you match that with advances that we're making now in quantum computing, we're rapidly approaching, sort of science fiction level advancements that I'm not sure that we've all really grappled with yet. I play with ChatGPT sometimes on my phone, and I'm like, wow, it rates better than I do, for sure. Occasionally, I've just as an experiment asked it to write a bill for me, and it does a great job. Not perfect. And I sort of begin to thinking about, different jobs, different, currently human powered sort of positions out there in the economy that are at risk of being supplanted by AI. And once quantum computing comes into play, I just think about like cybersecurity, something that my niece is studying at Cal Poly, actually. And I've heard that, the marriage of AI with quantum computing may render what we currently think about cybersecurity sort of irrelevant in a 5 or a 10-year period of time, that it will be impossible to encrypt data that can't be broken by AI and quantum computing together very rapidly. And so, that speaks to, I think, a need to continue this work, because the conversations we've had so far, I think, are very valuable and useful. But unless we continue to make sure that those conversations are ongoing, then they're useful conversations at a point in time. You used the word durable relationships in your presentation a number of times, and I think that that's well worth supporting, because without it, I kind of fear where we're going. I don't have a question here, I guess, but if you want to comment on that, I'd welcome it. But I think that the Tech Talent Accelerator program has done admirable work to date, and would like to see that sort of scaled up and continued. I appreciate your work on it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And, there's a lot of things we're working on, so it's hard to sometimes think about what do I put into a presentation. So I am part of the working group on the Quantum CT project on workforce. There's a lot happening, with AI, as we know. But one of the things that we're working on with the higher ed and in our K through 12 system is this understanding that we have to really focus on our building people's durable learning skills into the future. We talk a lot about technology and training and educating around a certain technology, but really the skill set of the future is the ability to be a lifelong learner and to be a critical thinker and a problem solver and situational awareness and self-regulation. And those are the conversations that are happening with our higher ed partners and our educational partners. Is, I'm sure you can all think of, your experience in school, right? Like, this is study skills, and this is, you're expected to be a good student and do your homework and study for a class, but we never really learned how to learn. And that's where my passion is. That's my PhD, is in experiential learning, and how do we actually learn? And it's a skill set that you can teach somebody how to be a good learner and how to be a problem solver. And those are the durable skills of the future, because the technology skills, they're changing so rapidly that you're gonna start to feel really confident, and then it's gonna jump to the next technology, and you're gonna have to iterate and learn on that again. And so a lot of the conversations that I'm having with our educational partners is around developing those durable learning skills, and you embed those within, the technology classes that you're teaching. But our liberal arts teachers sometimes say, well, that's what a sociology class is about, is, we teach those critical thinking skills. Yes, you do, but you don't always call them out explicitly. And that's the key. That's the light switch we need to turn on, is there's still value in our liberal arts education. But the value is how to be those critical thinkers and lifelong learners. And so we just need to start talking about that explicitly within the classroom setting, and helping our students identify what those skills are and how to articulate them to their employers. Because more and more, when you see a survey come out from employers, and I don't care what industry sector it is, they're not saying the most important skills are AI or, a certain type of technical skill. They're calling out those durable lifelong learning skills. And we just haven't had the vocabulary to be able to call them out and talk about them. And our business partners now are starting to understand that that's what they're talking about when they say, if I find somebody who has the it factor and I feel like they're like this cultural fit for us, we can teach them anything. We've given them now that language to talk about what are those hard, durable skills. And, a lot of people will say soft skills, and that really makes me cringe. I think of a soft skill as, knowing how to dress appropriately, how to shake a hand and show up on time. These are durable cognitive skills that we can learn and master and grow over time. And we really need to respect those skills and give them that vocabulary and call them those durable foundational, essential skills moving forward. So I think, you know, that's where my passion of this work comes through. And I kind of get on my soapbox and share that kind of perspective, I think, with anybody who will listen to me at this point in time, because the teaching just for skills and technical skills is not going to help people become successful into the future. So thanks for indulging me on that. I hope that
Thank
was
you, and
helpful.
I will jump in and comment, and then I'm going to shift to my partners. But I truly appreciate this line of thought. I originally went to school to be an English teacher and did a master's as an undergrad in doing adolescent education, and I always called it agility. The ability to adapt to the changing world around you. And that light bulb, when I was working with even 8th graders in the Bronx, of saying to them, did you know that you could study this not just through high school or through college, but through the PhD level, and that this will always evolve? That light bulb would go on for them. And so it is a practice, it is a skill set, and it is something that we absolutely, if we want to stay ahead of the business curve, no matter the profession, we do need to have those skills. So I'm so appreciative that you're calling it out and calling out the vocabulary of it. And with that, I will shift it to one of my colleagues, Representative Acker, and then Representative Farrar.
Thank you again, Doctor. So you had mentioned Colorado, and I know some of the work that Colorado is doing, but they're doing it in the earlier education years. They're doing it in high school and in middle school. I think the collaboration that with your office and probably with the CTEC system now under, I think going to be under Dr. Pritchard, that collaboration is probably taking place. I imagine that you're including that as part of your work. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I sit on the CTEC board. I sit on like 12 boards, but the CTEC board is actually one of my favorite boards to sit on because if you look at technical education, that's experiential learning at its best, right? And so you see those kids in those hands-on classrooms, and they have an opportunity to learn in the way that our brain actually functions and learns, by doing and iterating on that practice. But yes, we are also work very closely with our State Department of Education and our higher ed institutions to build dual and concurrent pathways. There's some language in the governor's implementer bill around dual and concurrent pathways, and some of those triggers that need to happen to make that process easier for our schools to build those programs. And so we're very much in the middle of those conversations and bringing in our business partners into those conversations. And we're really excited about the points that are in the governor's bill around dual and concurrent enrollment to help us build that out, because really we need to help our students early on. And we do know through some data and through just, qualitative assessments that students who are engaged in meaningful career pathway educational programs when they're in high school are less likely to become disconnected after high school,
right,
and are more engaged in high school. So we've had conversations with school districts, and a question that I've asked is, the students who are at risk, are they coming to their career education programs at a higher rate than they're coming to their English and math programs? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have some new data coming out through the P20 Win Dalio Foundation around the CTECs that will highlight some of that, the difference there, and how important it is for students to feel connected while they're in school, and that their education is going to be meaningful for them. We've got about 10% of our students who don't have a post-secondary plan, and they are and even those that do, sometimes they stay 1 year or 1 semester, right? Or they don't know what they want to do when they get to college, right? And so we can give them those learning opportunities while they're in school. That really makes a big difference for their rest of their trajectory, whether it's college and career, or college or career and then college.
Thank you. That was kind of my point, is sometimes you get through your K-12 education, and you go to college because that's something that you were told you should do. But if we could have some opportunity for internships or that dual enrollment or something prior to that, so when they go and get to that college that they're going to go to, or find the right college that fits what they want to do, which is another time, a process. So thank you for your collaboration on that, and I appreciate that and look forward to continue to work with you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know Rep. Ferrara has been waiting, so I'm happy to bring her up next.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Hi, Kelly. Great to have you here. I have a couple questions on the tech talent piece. So given that you all are planning to go into, I guess, year 3 of tech talent, can you kind of articulate a bit clearer, is the goal of tech talent to enroll more students in these opportunities, or is it more to better coordinate and develop the programs that these students are taking? I just want a better understanding of what the goal is there.
Yeah, so the goal is to improve the programs, but
Yeah.
by improving the programs, we're also drawing more interest for students to come into those programs because
Okay.
they can see the direct line to how that program is going to affect their employment. And some of these programs are master's degree programs as
Mhm.
well. We had a convening at Quinnipiac several months ago, and we had a student who was a grad student at Quinnipiac talking about the fact that he was going in and doing his work-based learning experiences and being able to really understand what he needed to do day one,
Mhm.
where the students from other higher ed institution programs who were not participating in tech talent were coming in just really at ground zero. So they're really making a difference for students, and as students understand and elevate programs get elevated, I think we're going to drive more students through them as well.
Okay, that's helpful. And so as the group is thinking about, as you said, maybe how they attract students or are retaining students, are there conversations in regards to how best to connect at the secondary level to build more of that diverse workforce? I'm just kind of curious how that is being connected to the need.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, career pathway programs happening across the state. There's dual credit opportunities happening across the state. And I think we're trying to be very intentional on how we support school systems being able to launch these programs and how they can be integrated into their curriculum and that they're not an add-on. And so when we think about, programming, say in robotics, doing some work on supporting BEX and FIRST Robotics are typically after-school programs, but they're probably some of the best education programs because they are experiential and they kind of have all of the components of building self-regulation and metacognitive skills in a way that is also grounded in our STEM requirements, right? So science, math, English, even effective communication. How can we get those programs to count for college or high school credit as well? And so a lot of the foundational work that you'll see in the governor's bill that's out now is to build those foundational blocks to make sure that those programs really are robustly supported.
Yeah, that's helpful to hear. And I certainly know one of OWS's goal is around diversity and inclusion. And that's why, I'm kind of so curious, especially because I hear from constituents who, regularly are still concerned when we look at our computer science classes, how few girls or kids of color are in those classes. And that translates through these career opportunities. And so, as this tech talent, work is continuing, I hope, that can become, a stronger component here of how to support translating what's happening in that college experiential environment more to what's needed to recruit more folks to see the opportunities in these pathways too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that we're focused really on the alliance districts in those communities that have traditionally been underserved. And in everything that we do, we try to show diversity and making sure that, you know, a woman sees herself in a manufacturing role, that a young man sees himself in a nursing role, and really making sure that it's not just those stereotypes that we see, but giving people exposure early on is really important. You know, with regards to like coding, if we need to be teaching coding in elementary school, because if we wait till they get to high school, they're going, oh, that's too hard for me and I don't want to put all that kind of effort in sometimes. Or it's scary and it's a topic that they don't really know enough about. But if we expose them through all kinds of hands-on fun things as they're younger, they get used to these things and they see themselves in ways that they wouldn't have before. So exposure young in every case is really important.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge we do have several legislators who are also online. I don't see any hand raised yet, but I am monitoring it to make sure that they can be included in the conversation as we continue. With that, if you don't mind sharing more about Career Connect, I see it's up on our screen now, and I'd love to drill in a little bit further into what's being done with Career Connect. I know it's been a very successful program across the state.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're really excited about Career Connect. We launched Career Connect to kind of take the different best practices that we knew worked and and scale them. And so this has been a really amazing investment of unencumbered funding to be able to say, you have $70 million. How do you serve people who tend to be the hardest to serve and help them be successful? And have the ability to be flexible in how we spend this money. So currently we've exceeded our target. We're over 6,000 people now. 2 out of 3 of them are placed in quality jobs. And we have approximately 18,000 people who are still in the portal looking for these opportunities. So I'm going to go through a little bit more detail on some of the outcomes and happy to get more information from you. So you'll see that Career Connect took a little bit of time to get off the ground. What we find is with every funding source, there is that startup period. And then once we start, you can see the steady incline of the number of people that we were able to serve rapidly go up. And then now we're at this place where we have a pretty well-oiled machine. And what happens when the funding goes away is all the infrastructure that has been put into place tends to go away as well. So when the next funding structure comes up, you reinvent the wheel. And so this investment really looked at all of those funding structures that we've had across the workforce boards and our community-based organizations for many years and picked out the best pieces of those. And we're able to set up this process to attract, train, and place folks. Next slide. And you'll see here that currently we're serving about 650 residents across the state quarterly. We map those residents to their towns and we focused on the towns that had the highest unemployment and the lowest income. We also set up a campaign, a marketing campaign, very much targeted to those populations in the way that I mentioned before, making sure people saw themselves in diverse roles. So you can see here the different industry sectors that have been served in blue. And then the red hash marks are the number of people who are still in the portal and have signed up for those job training programs. So next slide. This is a great opportunity to see the breadth of programming that has been developed through the 19 different contracts through Career Connect. So the 5 workforce boards were funded and 14 community-based organizations were funded. Some of the funding went specifically to programs in reentry or youth or legal immigrants. And Some of them have been also focused in specific high demand industry sectors and occupations. But it was really interesting to me when we put this slide together to really see in one place the number of occupations that have been supported across these industry sectors is robust. Yep. And then, you know, one of the things that we also worked on is to ensure that all of these programs have industry recognized credentials and whenever possible can be assessed for college credit and are on a pathway to a higher level and wage earning opportunities. You'll see the race and ethnicity and the gender that has come up here. And you can see that, you know, we really have met the targets in the populations that we were focused on serving. Again, mapping to underserved and high unemployment regions in the state towns. Yep, and here's our age breakdown. And what I love to see here is the number of opportunity youth that have been served through these programs. And you can really see that we're really kind of hit a sweet spot with the population that is 18 to 44, who are kind of in the prime of their working careers, but that we've had people of all ages come into the program as well. The under 18 program is some of the youth programming that was supported through Career Connect at some of our high schools across the state. Okay. Okay, so that's the information I brought with me today on Career Connect. We have a lot more. I'm happy to share with you. But do you have any questions on Career Connect?
So I appreciate the slides on breaking down exactly who's being served by these programs, particularly because we talk so much in the state about disconnected youth and our younger populations that are seeking to get on a meaningful career path, and knowing that these programs are career ladders and that there is the ability to enter into and then climb the ladder with stackable credentials. It's helpful to know when we're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds that are going into this system. I did have questions not about Career Connect, but I'd love to hear more about the Career Accelerator program, the no interest loans. I'm less familiar, and I think it'd be really important to learn more about how that fits into what puzzle piece that is.
Absolutely. Happy to do that, Bailey. If you can just advance to that slide. We're just about to get to that. So we were really excited to have this opportunity to do this work. It was actually on our agenda before it went through the legislative process, and this helped move that up to the top of our priority list. But the Career Accelerator program is really focused on zero interest loans and also including no cost supports to learners. So what we learned through Career Connect and through the WIOA programs is that when we're working with the populations that are hardest to serve, it's really important to provide them supportive services to help overcome some of those barriers, such as, you know, some of these folks need to be working while they're going to programming. So there's in some cases, that's a little harder to do than others when we try to focus on an accelerated program. So there's stipends. We partnered with the Department of Housing for housing stipends, for Office of Early Childhood with childcare stipends. So the Career Accelerator will include all of those supportive services, and they will not be paid back. What these are really focused on is those learners who do not qualify for federal dollars because they make just above the income ratio, but don't make enough money to really pay for the entrance into these programs that are industry recognized certifications and not credit, right? So it's that kind of sweet spot. The legislature asked us to focus on CDL licensure, which because CDL can be like a $30 an hour rate opportunity. What we did find early last year, actually last fall, not this past fall, the fall before, we engaged with a group of students from Yale to kind of study the CDL landscape and found that in the long haul CDL licensures, the turnover rate is 95%. Right, so that's why there's always open positions at high rates because at high wages, because that turnover is so high. And those local daily driving probably don't pay that same level. And so we wanted to make sure that what we were putting into the career accelerator was going to really help people move forward into their careers. So spent a lot of time looking at what other occupations could we include into the career accelerator. So there's a couple of roles in healthcare and a couple of roles in manufacturing. The goal here is that when a person hits $50,000 a year would be the trigger for them to pay back the training portion of their benefit at, I believe it's like $100 or $200 a month. It's a low monthly payback. And then, so we were looking at the occupations that were going to get people to that $50,000 minimum the fastest. But we also left it open-ended so that we can add and switch careers as we learn more information or new programs become available for them. So that the work is fairly close to being finalized on what the design of the career accelerator will be. The next step is to do an RFP on who will administer the career accelerator funds and run the programs. And in those content areas that will be informed by OWS. We have set aside 5 million of the Career Connect bond dollars that was already authorized to seed fund this program. So we're going to go out to RFP and then get on the bond agenda for that 5 million to be allocated so that we can award it and get this program off the ground.
Thank you. Any questions online or in the room? I think we're good so far. Do you have additional slides? Are there other components you'd like to share with us?
Sure. If you want to just go up to the slide before this. We just listed a bunch of the things that we have been working on. You know, we shared with you Career Connect. I didn't give you a lot of information about Good Jobs Challenge. I think we have some slides there. The Good Jobs Challenge grant is supporting the regional sector partnerships. And the report card of how well those regional sector partnerships are innovating is how many people are trained and placed. And a really interesting conversation I had with one of our conveners who was saying, you know, that goal we set, you know, it's been really hard for us to get to. And, you know, we're starting to think, well, if we do these other things and we can really scale this program up, or we can think about how we can leverage that group of students by adding this to it and getting them employed. And they're going, we have to think really creatively to get to this number. And I'm like, well, there you go. That is why the numbers are set high and ambitious for you, so that you do think innovatively, creatively, and build enhanced partnerships to get to where you need to be. So we're really excited about that grant. And there's a lot of things that we do that we're not legislatively mandated to do that are within the work that we do. And so some of those additional efforts has been some work being done on benefits cliffs in partnership with the Office of Early Childhood. We have been doing work on a nursing report, which was the group did such an amazing job on this report that it came out to be 270 pages long. And I said to them, I don't know if anybody's going to read 270-page report on nursing, but there was so much amazing information in there that is informing the work that we continue to do through Health Horizons, through Career Connect, and in partnership with our educational and partners. So there's a lot behind the work we do. We robustly convene 5 diversity, equity, and inclusion working groups. And so a lot of information coming out of those groups that is being used to form other work. Partnerships that we have across our state agencies are really robust. So I would say that's about everything that I have there, except for one more thing that I think is important for you all to think about. The governor had mentioned in his State of the State address, reimagining workforce development. And as our funding for the ARPA funds are starting to sunset, thinking about, you know, what can we do to continue to innovate the workforce system. So we have asked the governor's office and now the legislature to reauthorize $30 million, which had been formally authorized under Career Connect, to build a new workforce innovation and sustainability fund. And we see this kind of being done out of the Manufacturing Innovation Fund, where the funding would come into this fund. We would have the opportunity to bring in philanthropy to add to that fund. We've got a lot of interest from philanthropy to support the programming that we have, to support student scholarships, to build new innovative programs. And we're looking at that to be run by an advisory group, which would be the subgroup of the Governor's Workforce Council. So these are all folks that have already been appointed in part by the legislature, in part by the governor's office, business-led. And then we'll be able to determine what investments do we need to make and where do we need to make them. So DECD works very much in this kind of realm, and being able to continue to support programs like CT Health Horizons, CT Tech Talent, bringing those types of programs to other industry sectors, being able to support some of our most productive Career Connect programs, being able to build technology that is going to provide us the information that we need to grow and build. We proved that a virtual front door for job seekers and students to register for all of these job training programs is highly successful. 35,000 plus residents in 2.5 years have signed up for job training programs within the portal. We mirrored that after the Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative in Eastern Connecticut. Their portal is 10 years old and has 16,000 people in it. So when we take a statewide approach, we can see that we can really scale up these programs. So those are just a few of the things that we're looking to do with the WISE Fund, and continue to be able to enhance and seed innovation in our workforce and build out those strategic partnerships.
So I do have a couple questions. First is with 18,000 people in the queue for Career Connect, this 30 million, is that what you would need in order to maintain or grow this program so that we can get those folks to the job training they need? We know that the people who are going through the program are people who certainly need it and who we're trying to reach. So how do we get those folks who are waiting to completion of these programs?
Right. That's a very good question. So we have focused on breeding funding sources from the very beginning. So our workforce boards are all of our partners. They are braiding not only their WIOA funding for job training, but they all have grants that they're using to be able to fund and braid. We're going to continue to do that as the Career Connect funding is fully expended. In part, the WISE Fund would continue to support the best practice programs that are in Career Connect. We have a lot of interest from philanthropy, so we would love to bring philanthropy into the ability to help support those. And another initiative that we're going to be working on and rolling out this spring in partnership with our industry partners is to get them to start contributing to the cost of these job training programs. So if they're hiring folks out of these programs, can they help support the cost of running these programs? They're very beneficial to them, and actually the cost would be a drop in the bucket compared to them having to do all of this recruitment and training in-house. So we're really looking at how do we continue to braid these funding sources and what additional federal opportunities will be coming down the pike that we'll continue to watch for. We know that that is not as a well of a known supply of funding for the future, but we're looking to ensure that we're bringing in funding from many different sources to continue these programs.
Thank you. And I love the idea of getting some skin in the game from the business community, particularly as this is training that directly supports their industries. And I think it's important that, as being good corporate partners, because everything affects each other. We're all connected in this. It's important for them to understand their role in making sure that we have getting people into these good programs. My last question is the Good Jobs Challenge. That's federal funding. What is the status of that currently? Has that been expended? Is that in the queue? Is it safe? Where are we?
Currently, as we understand it, that funding is safe, is fully obligated and contracted out. The majority of the funding has been received and allocated. And conversations with the EDA this week has said that that program is going to continue to move forward. We know that it's a changing landscape, so we're keeping very close eye on that. But it's really a program designed to support businesses, and so we're working closely with the EDA to make sure that we're compliant to what they need us to do, and that money is safe and be fully expended.
Thank you. And then as far as marketing goes, I know, at least for my district, I have 2 alliance districts. They're distressed municipalities. Whenever I ask for you to be at a jobs fair or a public event, your team comes down and engages the community. And I remember at one point I was pumping gas and suddenly the Career Connect program popped up on my screen as I was pumping gas. Can you share with us some of the marketing that you're doing to make sure that you're reaching people across the state who we're targeting for these programs?
Absolutely. So that program is funded by Career Connect, but I also see that as a great opportunity with the WISE Fund to continue to fund that program. I believe we're about $1.5 million in on that, and a lot of the collateral, the big expenditures kind of been expended, so we can keep that moving forward. We actually mapped, we have a map of Connecticut with the highest unemployment rates by zip code. And that's and then mapped on top of that our alliance districts and our low income districts. And so we're able to really pinpoint and focus where our marketing and outreach happens. And so to your point, it just takes us to call up our marketing company and say, we're seeing that not as many people from a certain zip code are coming in that we want to target. Can you take some of that collateral and make some buys in that region? And that happens. And what you see is the ad pop up when you're pumping gas. So we've had millions of hits on the social media sites and on the website. And so we feel that that's been a very high return on our investment to keep that marketing program moving.
And for those who are waiting, right? We know we have 18,000 people that would love to take part in this. Is there still engagement with them? How are we keeping them? How are we going to keep them moving to make sure that they can continue in this pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. So they are being served by case managers through the 5 regional workforce boards. And in some cases through their community-based organizations who are like really pinpointed on specific populations within their communities. We are pushing information out to them and continue to look for those other funding sources that will be able to support their opportunities to go into those job training programs. And remember that number is totality over the course of 2.5 almost 3 years now. So there's people that are in different places within that queue.
Thank you for humoring me with all of these questions. One thing that I've always appreciated is you really stood up your office in the midst of the COVID crisis at a time where people were out of work at a much higher rate, where the economic climate was changing as far as what jobs were going to be available. And there was a pronounced mismatch between, in-demand fields and the skill set that people had. And so this is certainly, at least in my eyes, a way to get people into not just a job, but a career. And you put it together in the midst of some pretty strong headwinds. My last question, then I'm going to check and see if anyone else has questions, is I know that the Career Connect website was built in the midst of COVID, and I think with ARPA funds. Do you have a plan to make sure that we can keep that going under the current system past the ARPA funds?
Absolutely. So we are working with DAS on some funds for technology. And the goal is to bring the portal back under the Connecticut umbrella of technology and work with DAS to ensure that that pipeline in the portal continues and actually expands. And we're looking at ways in which we can add additional features and opportunities for the folks that are in the portal. And then also working closely with Department of Labor and the Office of Policy and Management and P20 WIN as to how we can connect the information that's in the portal into CT hires and then be able to build additional dashboards on top of that to be able to pull real-time reports out of. So yeah, there's a whole strand of work that's happening with regards to the data.
Thank you for that. Are there any additional questions online or in the room? Okay, I want to thank you for your time. Oh, actually, Rep. Farrar.
Thank you. Hi, Kelly. I know we're wrapping up quickly, but I did just want to ask a couple questions, given that you gave kind of a highlight of where the governor's proposal is moving forward. And kind of going back to some of the data you shared about Career Connect. And thank you for all of that. It's very helpful. I noticed in the presentation today, of course, you shared the enrollment data, which is helpful, but obviously what's more impactful is knowing the completion data and the actual participants employed. And I just wanted to ask, because in getting that data from your office previously, I know the breakdown by demographics was for the enrollees, but we don't have it for all of the other aspects. So if you would be willing to share the demographic breakdown for who actually not just was enrolled, but who completed and who was employed, because I think that gives us a much different picture of where we can improve the program work that you've been doing. And I'm just curious, based on that data and the analysis you all have done, what are some of the best practices that you would say you would take forward out of Career Connect into the WISE fund? I know that previously when we spoke, there definitely was a drop off, particularly, around women as they were moving through being enrolled to completed to employed. And I'm just curious, and looking at all those programs that you've had, what would you take forward into the WISE? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Here's some data on the completion and placement. And again, this is a snapshot in time. So somebody could complete a program one day and then this report is done the next day. But overall, the placement data seems to be much higher compared to some of the other programs. And there's a few fundamentals about the Career Connect program that needs to take forward. The statewide portal for recruitment with the outreach campaign, I think were very important for awareness and getting people to know what their opportunities were. We also work closely with CT State to build out in-demand or schedule programs that were scheduled in demand in a cohort model. So this cohort model follows the manufacturing pipeline initiative model of a cohort. Instead of an individual training ATI authorization to like go take a class somewhere, that person then becomes kind of isolated in just taking a class as part of a bigger group. Where the cohort model, you're supported more with your instructor and a group of people that are going to stay with you through the whole process. The demand-driven component's also really important, making sure that employers are involved at the beginning of the cohort and that they're meeting the people that are taking these classes and providing opportunities for conditional offers upon completion is really drives up the employment model at the end. Some of the programs that like wait until the end and then they try to engage employers, they lose track of those participants and they may have gotten employed, but we may not know it until the wage match data happens, but that's like almost a year or more out before that wage match happens and we can capture that. So the employer engagement up front, the cohort model, the portal, the recruitment outreach campaign are really the key elements, along with being able to provide supportive services as needed. So I think we skipped over the supportive service slide earlier, but this really was an important aspect to getting people to be able to complete on time.
So I absolutely saw the slide you shared. I think it's just the demographic data for those categories. So if you would be willing to share that, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Happy to work on getting that for you. Right now,
Thank
it's
you.
a very manual process.
Yeah.
So we're working on trying to automate that process,
Mhm.
and that's part of why getting things in that data, in a better data management system, that we can pull that data is really vital to our work moving forward, because to your point, we want to make sure that not only we are attracting the people, but they're completing and getting employed at those same dates.
Correct. Yeah. And then just one final question. I know you're spoke to the WISE Fund. That is a funding mechanism. Are there any other policy specific priorities that you would say OWS has or recommendations that have come up through your work?
Yes, and I think, a lot of them are in the governor's budget this year on dual and concurrent enrollment and some of those foundational things that need to happen, including like defining what is a career pathway, right? There's lots of different definitions on what that is. And I think even though it doesn't sound significant, getting everybody on the same page to understand what that is and then how do we build those programs, I think is very important. Building out some of the frameworks around what does it take to implement a dual enrollment program is important. We're also working really closely with the workforce boards. They historically kind of saw themselves as competitors or set up as independent agencies. We're really having robust conversations about shared agendas and shared work with local implementation. And we're getting a lot of really good traction on that. And I think they're starting to see, I know they see this value in working collectively as a collective. We can serve people more equitably across the state. And so that work is also happening.
Thank you. Thank you to the chair. Thanks for, again, being with us. And we look forward to further conversations and all this with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you again, Rep. Rochelle, for inviting me here today.
Thank you for taking the time for all of these slides and all of the work that you're doing. I think that I speak for all of us when I say that it's so important, whether you're going to a four-year school or our community college programs or going through some of the programs that you facilitate through the Office of Workforce Strategy. There's a lot of different pathways to success, and making sure that we are meeting people where they are and showing them not just a job, but a career path that will bring them up the academic ladder is just so important. So thank you for the outreach that you're doing. I look forward to a robust conversation going forward.
Thank you.